Grand Rising Soul Tribe. How is everyone doing out there? I hope you guys are having a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, depending on where you're at in the world. Today, I am going to be revealing Project Eastern Dawn as well as a hidden city that China developed within the last decade that is already using free energy, Tesla technology, very similar to Tartaria. And so this is one of the reasons why Trump had to meet with Xi Jinping 5 days ago. And many things were discussed, which I'm going to be revealing here on my show. And so there's a lot going on from behind the scenes, despite of what the Mockingbird media tells us. The truth of the matter is that the cabal is done with. So I'm going to be revealing what is actually happening per Commander Valiant Thor. But before I get to the presentation, I do want to welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much for being here. I also wanted to extend gratitude to all of you for showing up, for having interest in learning and wanting to know what's really going on. And I also wanted to thank you guys for the donations, for those that donated because of the presentation that I uploaded last Friday at Rise of the Guardians conference. I decided to upload it, and apparently you guys are loving it. It's almost at 20,000 views. So if you guys have not seen that presentation, I did upload it as of Friday evening, and it's on my YouTube channel. Make sure you guys watch that, all right, if you haven't seen it. I also want to welcome all the new people. I know I get about 200 to 300 new subscribers per day, so I want to welcome all the new people. Thank you guys so much for having interest in these subjects. And for those that don't know me, my name is Ismael Perez, and I'm the author of The Secret Government, Invisible Architects, and of course, Our Cosmic Origin, which is the book right over here that restores galactic information and cosmic information back to the Earth. So, wow. Yeah, there's a lot to discuss today, guys. A lot of things are happening that the media is not reporting on. In fact, the media is spinning it and saying otherwise. So I hope you guys are in for a not a shocking revelation, but I'm just going to say it this way. You guys are all in for a good treat here with today's presentation. Quick reminder before I start the presentation, I do want to remind you guys that my new set of courses have been uploaded on my website, ourcosmicorigin.com. I have 3 different level of Ascension courses for beginners. I have Ascension 2.0 for intermediates. And then, of course, for those of you that are extremely advanced and want to know how to embody the cosmic self, I do have Ascension 3.0. And for all my new subscribers, I do offer a class where I break down the cosmic infrastructure and give you a thorough understanding of cosmic history going back to 998 billion years ago. So that is my groundbreaking class, Our Cosmic Origin, where I break down advanced civilizations, DNA structures, intergalactic councils, cosmic history, and much more. So yeah, that's my groundbreaking class. And just to let you guys know, my classes are filling up pretty fast rather these days. Apparently, a lot of people have a huge interest in this type of content. So make sure you guys go to my website and secure your spot. And once again, my classes are cheap. I only offer them for $100, guys. You can't go any cheaper than that. So, or the word inexpensive. So if you guys want to sign up, it's first come, first serve. All right. So any other announcements? One last announcement, and I think you guys know where I'm heading at, right? I do believe in detoxing your body, even though I'm not a doctor. And disclaimer, I do believe in a holistic way of eliminating the nanobots and the metals. And so there is Folium. And right now, Folium Immune, don't have that on me, is the most advanced formula for those that are interested in ordering the 5 for the price of 3 or the 3 for the price of 2. The link is always in the description. And of course, I always pin it at the end of the live. All right. So, with no further ado, now I could get right into the Alliance Intelligence Report. So, this is going to be a revelation of what they call Operation Eastern Dawn and how that ultimately is connected to what they call the New Earth Disclosure Accords. Okay, so according to classified geopolitical briefings, despite what the Mockingbird media has said about the Trump Xi Jinping meeting that took place last Monday, I believe, or was it last Wednesday, a few days ago, a far more significant operation has been unfolding as a result of that meeting. Some secret negotiations took place. And so, according to the Alliance intelligence briefings, the meeting was not about tariffs, it wasn't even about trade routes or even semiconductors or even military deterrence. Instead, it actually represented a pivotal phase in a much larger global restructuring effort designed to dismantle the remnants of the old centralized communist power structure from within. Yeah. Well, I don't know if you guys knew, but the Rockefeller Rothschild, let's just call it the globalists, were the ones that were that had installed the CCP in China. And so, right now, due to the meeting that took place, it turns out that the CCP has now converted into the Republic of China. And there are many reasons why Xi Jinping was able to do that. Okay. Apparently, there were many globalists that were financing and pulling the strings from behind the scenes when it came to the CCP party. It was an extension of the globalist agenda. And so, what's happening right now is that this old centralized communist power that was actually suppressing the Chinese people is no longer a thing, okay, as of 5 days ago. So, this is going to lead China towards a new sovereign era that is aligned with a multipolar planetary system. And I think you guys know where I'm heading at, right? Which is the emergence of the super states. All right. So, according to this alliance briefing, internal fractures had already began forming deep within the Chinese power hierarchy years earlier. And so economic instability was shown, public unrest, corruption scandals, demographic collapse, supply chain disruptions, and even a growing distrust of centralized technocratic control creating divisions among senior leadership factions within the CCP party. Well, some were set to favor maintaining strict authoritarian systems, while others quietly supported a controlled transition towards a more open and national restored governance model, which is known as the Republic of China. Alliance analysts have identified these internal divisions as an opportunity. So, within this unfolding event, hidden diplomatic channels between Trump, aligned geopolitical factions, and even certain nationalist elements inside China focused on avoiding catastrophic global conflict while simultaneously dismantling the old financial architecture tied to the globalist influence network that was holding the CCP in power. So rather than engaging in direct confrontation, the strategy centered on gradual economic pressure as well as control supply chain realignment and information exposure, and of course, strategic cooperation between military and intelligence factions operating from behind the scenes. So, this operation became known within the alliance circle as Operation Eastern Dawn. This is the long term objective that was not the destruction of China itself, but the transformation of the system that was controlling China, the oppressive CCP. According to insiders, the alliance viewed the Chinese people as victims of a deeply entrenched political structure that had become increasingly disconnected from national sovereignty and traditional civilization values. The ultimate goal was said to involve the emergence of a new Republic of China, a restructured nation capable of participating in a future multipolar alliance of sovereign civilizations rather than remaining tied to centralized ideological control. Now, one of the most sensitive aspects of these reports involves the secret negotiations surrounding technological and economic restructuring. Alliance observers believed that the collapse of the old power systems could not occur through military force alone. We would have too many casualties. Instead, the global economic framework itself had to be transformed. So, within this unfolding phenomenon, supply chains became the cornerstone of a new civilization that is now going to be emerging on the earth. Semiconductors, rare earth minerals, quantum technology, artificial intelligence infrastructures, shipping corridors, and even energy systems became leverage points in a silent economic war aimed at weakening centralized control mechanisms while preparing the groundwork for a future decentralized technological renaissance. Public trait disputes were therefore interpreted as visible symptoms of a much deeper geopolitical transition already underway beneath the surface. The report also suggests that Space Force and allied international aerospace factions played a symbolic and strategic role in these negotiations. The Alliance Space Force represented more than just the fifth military arm of the US Army. It actually symbolized the transition of an old Earth centered geopolitical paradigm into a planetary civilization preparing for the next phase of human development. Within this unfolding, the restoration of sovereignty among nations was viewed as a necessary precursor to broader disclosure events concerning advanced technologies, hidden aerospace programs, and even humanity's future role in space. China's importance in this process was obviously considered enormous because of this hidden city that, again, the alliance discovered. And I'll explain that in a little bit. Apparently, China had already developed a city that is 400 years ahead of the general public. And it was hidden from satellites, it was hidden from Google Earth. And of course, we were able to use advanced space age technology to detect it, as to one of the reasons why Trump and Xi Jinping needed to meet. So, alliance strategists believed that China would eventually become one of the greatest surprises of the geopolitical awakening. Rather than collapsing into chaos, certain factions envisioned China transforming into a technological and industrial cornerstone of a future planetary alliance system once the old centralized structures had been removed. This transformation, according to alliance briefings, would include the dismantling of corruption networks tied to centralized authoritarian control, like the CCP, the exposure of hidden financial manipulation systems that were apparently manipulating the CCP. All roads lead back to the Rothschilds and hence the Vatican when it comes to communism or any centralized form of tyranny, right? The restructuring of global manufacturing and even energy infrastructure. And so the emergence of a centralized economic cooperation between nations through BRICS is going to be the solution and the replacement of the old financial system, as well as increased transparency surrounding advanced technologies. It turns out that China is also, there's a division of China that is also implementing and incorporating advanced technologies like how they did in the Tartarian civilization. And I'll explain that in a little bit. Um, in, in essence, my friends, the restoration of cultural and national sovereignty was one of the reasons why Trump and Xi Jinping had to meet, which is a shift away from perpetual geopolitical conflict towards strategic planetary cooperation. Now, the Trump Xi Jinping back channel discussions were therefore portrayed by circles as a temporary bridge between two competing eras of civilization: the collapsing age of centralized global control and the emergence of a new multipolar world structure. So, in the final phase of this meeting, the alliance intelligence analysts warned that the greatest geopolitical changes then occur quietly long before the public even becomes aware of them. Public narratives only focus on fake elections, tariffs, surface level stuff, speeches, and of course, headlines, while deeper transformations unfold within the financial sectors, intelligence operations, technological infrastructures, and even a shifting alliances between powerful factions operating behind closed doors. So, Operation Eastern Dawn is one of the most strategic moves within the alliance circles because it frames China as one of the central battlegrounds in humanity's transition into a completely new era. Let me explain. So, following the geopolitical breakthroughs of the Trump Xi Jinping back channel negotiations, the alliance sources began circulating reports that an even more sensitive subject had quietly entered the discussions behind closed doors. And this has a lot to do with the coordinated release of classified information concerning UFOs, UAPs, non human intelligence, and decades of hidden aerospace programs. Apparently, China had them too, all right, controlled by the CCP. So, according to the briefings, world leaders increasingly realized that the global population was approaching a point where secrecy surrounding advanced technologies and unexplained aerial phenomena could no longer be maintained. So, the rapid rise of independent media, civilian tracking systems, whistleblower testimonies, and mass public sightings made controlled disclosure inevitable. The meeting between Trump and Xi Jinping and the aligned factions that orchestrated this meeting, you guys are going to be uh, shocked, not shocked, but happy to hear how this meeting was orchestrated. All right. This meeting that took place between Trump and Xi Jinping and the selected Chinese leadership representatives expanded far beyond economics and even military strategy. It actually involved it evolved into a preliminary negotiation concerning what insiders refer to as the Disclosure Accords. The Disclosure Accords is an international framework designed to manage the gradual release of information related to extraterrestrial intelligence and advanced off world technologies while preventing global panic and institutional collapse. Now, according to the report, the central concern was not whether disclosure would occur, but who would control the narrative once it began. So, the alliance analysts warned that if governments failed to coordinate the process, uncontrolled leaks and even mass sightings could destabilize financial markets, religious institutions, military alliances, and even global governance structures simultaneously. So, as a result, several nations were set to begin quietly aligning themselves with a face disclosure strategy intended to prepare humanity for a radical, expanded understanding of our reality. Within this unfoldment, Russia reportedly became one of the earliest major powers to support the initiative. Intelligence briefings claim that elements within the Russian scientific and military establishment had long possessed classified archives concerning anomalous aerial phenomena dating back to the Soviet era. Well, if you guys recall, who launched the Soviet era, right? When Russia was under the communist control, it was the Rothschilds. The Rothschilds controlled the Communist Party of Russia back in those days as well. So when the communist um, infrastructure fell, um, that was a huge blow to the globalist. Okay. As geopolitical tensions intensified worldwide, certain Russian factions concluded that disclosure would become a strategic advantage capable of reshaping global alliances and undermining the old Western intelligence monopoly over advanced aerospace knowledge. India was also said to have emerged as a major participant in the disclosure coalition. According to the insiders, alliance observers viewed India as uniquely positioned to bridge advanced scientific disclosure with spiritual and philosophical traditions that already embraced multidimensional concepts, cosmic cycles, and non human intelligences within the ancient Indian texts. So, reports suggested that Indian aerospace and defense sectors quietly opened communication channels with international disclosure groups in preparation for a near future public transition. Brazil also became another critical player in this, what is known as the disclosure accords. So Brazil became, according to, of course, what's been released, is that Brazil has a long history of UFO encounters, military investigations, and public openness towards anomalies or anomalous phenomena made it one of the easiest nations through which disclosure could be normalized. Reports circulated that Brazilian officials favored a more transparent approach, believing that the population would adapt more quickly than many Western nations to the revelations that humanity is not alone in the universe. Together, these nations, China, the US, India, Brazil, and Russia, are forming the early framework of an emerging international disclosure alliance. Now, China's role, however, remains the most significant. According to alliance briefings, the Chinese leadership factions recognize that the controlled release of advanced technologies connected to energy systems, propulsion research, and quantum communication could fundamentally reshape the balance of power on Earth. So rather than resisting disclosure indefinitely, the Republic of China, which again was existing parallel to the CCP party, but the CCP party was also financed and installed by the Rothschilds, that has now ended. Okay. So now China has gained their independence from the globalist, which explains the disclosure accords. Okay. So rather than resisting disclosure indefinitely, the Republic of China preferred participating in the transition in order to maintain strategic influence during the formation of a future multipolar planetary system. Within the alliance circles, Space Force and associated aerospace coalitions were said to function as coordinators behind the scenes, not just as military organizations, but as transitional infrastructure for managing the technological and psychological impacts of disclosure. The report further claimed that discussions included contingency plans for several possible disclosure scenarios, mass public sightings over major cities, the exposure of secret aerospace programs, coordinated release of classified military footage worldwide, being released by Brazil, India, China, Russia, and us, scientific acknowledgement of non human craft, controlled leaks involving recovered technologies and then reverse engineering them, of course, and the release of advanced energy and medical technologies. international acknowledgement of ongoing UAP monitoring operations that are still taking place, by the way. Alliance insiders believed the old geopolitical order could not survive full disclosure in its current form. The revelation that advanced technologies and potentially non human intelligences existed beyond the public narrative would trigger massive demands for transparency, accountability, and even planetary cooperation. Furthermore, this was precisely why multiple nations began shifting away from rigid Cold War rivalries and towards a strategic coordination plan. The ultimate objective of the Disclosure Accords, which was signed by Trump and Xi Jinping, Alliance has reported, was to guide humanity through the collapsing of the old secrecy-based civilization model without descending into chaos. Rather than a sudden revelation, disclosure would unfold gradually through media normalization, scientific acknowledgement, whistleblower testimony, technological rollouts, and geopolitical realignments occurring over several years. By the conclusion of the report, analysts warned that the public was likely witnessing only the visible surface of a much larger transformation already underway beneath the geopolitical landscape. What appeared publicly as trade negotiations, diplomatic summits, and military tensions within the alliance have actually represented the early stages of humanity's managed transition into an entirely new era of planetary awareness. Well, this explains why shortly after 5 days of this meeting, Xi Jinping and Putin also met. Was it today or yesterday? Within the last day, I think. They also met, okay? So this is all part of the dismantling of the British Empire. Let's just be real. Alliance monitoring divisions are also analyzed or have analyzed what may be the most significant covert infrastructure revelation in modern geopolitical history. Well, unbeknownst to us, guys, the emergence of a fully operational megacity, very similar to Tartaria, using Tesla technology, free energy, propulsion systems, electrogravitic transportation, you could say infrastructures, was already built by China 8 years ago, okay? This emergence of a fully operational megacity hidden within Western China did not appear on the public map, and it hasn't since they created it, all right? Or even registering on commercial satellites prior to recent exposure. The location, internally referred to within intelligence circles, call it Project Mandate of Heaven, reportedly supports an estimated population of approximately 2 million residents and contains infrastructure operating far beyond publicly acknowledged civilian technology. So apparently China was also incorporating advanced technologies. They also had a secret space program. The discovery was triggered following a 4-second aerial broadcast segment that aired during a Chinese military parade transmission. Open source intelligence analysts identified an unfamiliar skyline inconsistent with any known Chinese municipality. Subsequent satellite triangulation revealed the presence of a massive urban complex in a region that public imaging systems had previously displayed as empty desert terrain. Alliance analysts are now investigating whether the disclosure of the city was accidental or an intentional signal. On May 1st, commercial satellite observers began reviewing anomalous imagery emerging from a remote Western Chinese sector located approximately 140 kilometers from the nearest publicly acknowledged settlement. According to the report, the site contained extensive skyscraper districts, fully integrated transit systems were visible, industrial, medical, and residential sectors appear very active. Power infrastructures exist without visible conventional transmission grids, In other words, they were using free energy. Population density estimated exceeded 2 million inhabitants. So apparently, this hidden city in China had a population of 2 million inhabitants that were living in balance and in abundance, all right, due to the propulsion systems that they had, as well as the free energy technology that they were using. This is fascinating. Okay, so as soon as Trump found out about this, he had to schedule a meeting with Xi Jinping because they needed to coordinate and work together. I'll explain why in a little bit. Okay. Most concerning to Western intelligence observers was that archived public satellite feeds showed no evidence up until the last few months of urban development at the coordinates prior to recent analysis. According to the report, Alliance cyber divisions suspect advanced image layer masking systems may have been used to obscure the location from publicly accessible mapping platforms for years. Well, the Chinese call it Project Heaven platform. That's what they called it because, again, this is a city that they created without nobody knowing about it until now. Alliance sources claim that the city carries the internal designation Project Mandate of Heaven. Construction occurred between 2009 and 2018 under extreme compartmentalization protocols. According to the briefing, the operation involved large-scale underground construction networks, relocation of civilian populations under classified housing initiatives, restricted aerospace exclusion zones, electromagnetic masking technologies, artificial climate stabilization systems, and autonomous infrastructure management. So this city was obviously very advanced, okay? Alliance observers believed that the global attention was intentionally diverted towards China's island expansion campaigns in the South China Sea during the same period in order to conceal the scale of inland development activity. The city reportedly demonstrates several technologies not publicly available within any commercial market. And so some of these technologies included magnetic levitation transit systems with no visible rail infrastructure. Doesn't it sound like Tartaria? They also included self-sustaining energy systems lacking external fuel supply chains. They also included buildings with no detectable conventional electrical grid connection, no electricity the way we use it. All right. In other words, they were tapping into free energy. And that also included minimal detectable thermal signatures from orbital surveillance. And last but not least, it also included electromagnetic suppression fields, reducing external visibility as to why they were hidden since 2012. Alliance technical divisions have reportedly compared portions of the architecture and infrastructure signatures to experimental concepts that originated from Russian classified aerospace patents. Apparently, Russia is also involved in the development of advanced infrastructures. American Department of Defense, urban continuity programs from the 1990s, and of course, post-grid civilization models in the event that something happened catastrophically, that city would be fully intact. And of course, analysts suggest or suspect that the city may function as a prototype for next generation civilization. The infrastructure intended to operate independently of conventional global systems. Now, why did they construct this hidden city, this advanced city that is about 400 to 500 years ahead of the general public? Many of you guys might be thinking, well, the assessment, according to the Alliance, proposed several theories, all right? The first one is that the city may have served as a continuity of civilization hub designed to maintain operational governance and technological stability during large-scale geopolitical or economic collapse scenarios. Certain alliance analysts believe that Project Mandate of Heaven represents a live prototype for a future post financial reset society. Now, according to this revelation, the city operates under experimental systems involving resource based economic models, automated infrastructure distribution, decentralized energy systems, reduced pharmaceutical dependency, and limited surveillance architecture compared to existing urban models who were heavily surveilled, right? Well, this city had it wasn't a smart city. They had no AI surveilling the 2 million people that were already living in it. And I believe that these 2 million people, very similar to how the secret space program were taking people off world since the 1950s, right? No record of where they went. I believe that the Chinese were doing the same. These 2 million people that were chosen to inhabit this city were taken off grid. Okay. The most controversial suggestion is that the city may have been connected to a long-term disclosure preparation effort involving advanced technologies that have been withheld from the public for decades. Now, I guess they call it, the Chinese call it Project Heaven Mandate, is viewed not as a military installation, but as a transnational civilization platform designed to test whether humanity can operate under entirely new technological paradigms. Now, according to the briefings, Alliance investigators strongly dispute the idea that China constructed the project independently. They believe that the Chinese were actually connected with Russia, and they implemented or they used some of the Russian infrastructure programs that they derived from the records of Tartaria and all of those blueprints that they used during the Tartarian Empire, once again, in the development of Project Heaven Mandate, okay? In addition to that, they also believed that there was some ties to the American Continuity of Government Research Division. In other words, somehow certain factions within the alliance knew about this, okay, before the rest of the alliance found out. And of course, this was a classified multinational technological program, okay? Now, this has fueled speculation that Project Earth Mandate or Heaven Mandate may represent the first publicly exposed example of covert cooperation between competing world powers preparing for an anticipated global transition event. And not, excuse me, alliance analysts remain divided over whether the military parade footage leak was accidental. The prevailing theory within this analysis is that the broadcast was obviously intentional, not intended for the general population, but for the intelligence agencies, alliance observers, and competing geopolitical factions monitoring global transitions operations have stated that the signal was not the city itself. The signal was that the city was allowed to be seen. And this is where the galactics intervene for this to happen. The controlled exposure of this project, this hidden city in China, Project Heaven Mandate, may represent the beginning of gradual normalization surrounding the hidden infrastructure, advanced technologies, and parallel development programs that have long been denied to the public. So Alliance intelligence divisions concluded that if Project Mandate, Heaven Mandate, exists in the form described, it represents evidence that certain global factions may already be preparing for a post-transition civilization model operating beyond the limitations of current economic and technological systems. Project Heaven Mandate
the secret city that China had for the last decade, has rapidly become one of the most discussed subjects within alliance circles because that the possibility it suggests the possibility that elements of this new world structure may already be functioning behind the scenes while the public remains focused on the collapsing structures of the old one. Now, in addition to all of this, according to the Advanced Alliance escalons circulating within disclosure community, the Trump Xi Jinping negotiation also represented more than just a geopolitical realignment between two superpowers. Behind the scenes, the meeting marked the beginning of a coordinated transition into what insiders refer to as the Space Era Accords. The Space Era Accords, which is a secret multinational initiative intended to prepare humanity for its next stage of technological and planetary evolution. Within this unfolding partnership, extraterrestrial intervention is described as strategic guidance operating through select military, scientific, and even geopolitical functions already aware that humanity is approaching a civilization threshold. Alliance sources claim that the true objective of the meeting was to establish preliminary cooperation between emerging aerospace powers in order to accelerate humanity's transition from a divided planetary civilization into a unified spacefaring civilization. The centerpiece of the discussion involved combining advanced aerospace systems connected to Space Force programs, China's massive industrial and manufacturing capabilities, Russian propulsion research, experimental energy technologies hidden within classified black projects, reversed engineer technologies recovered through covert international programs. So according to this part of the report, the ultimate goal was not domination, but preparation for the next era of human evolution. Alliance intelligence divisions warned global leadership that humanity's current civilization model had reached a breaking point. The old system, depending on fossil fuels, data-based economics, centralized power structures, resource scarcity, and endless geopolitical conflict, was becoming unsustainable under the pressure of ecological instability, economic fragmentation, information decentralization, rising public distrust in institutions, and increasing anomalous aerial activity worldwide. Within this unfolding, certain ET-aligned councils concluded that direct disclosure without preparation would destabilize Earth beyond recovery. Instead, a gradual technological transition had to occur first. The Trump-Xi Jinping meeting, therefore, became one of the first major geopolitical negotiations centered on the engineering infrastructure of a new world to come. So basically, part of that meeting was that both Xi Jinping and Trump were going to share with one another the advancements of technologies that they have been, of course, working within the private sector, okay, and how they are going to coordinate an effort plan to roll them out to the general public. So, according to Alliance briefings, multiple advanced non-human civilizations have quietly monitored Earth development for decades while avoiding overt interference. The report claims that these civilizations follow a doctrine of limited intervention, only stepping in when planetary extinction level scenarios or timeline collapse events become probable. Within this context, rising global tensions between nuclear powers triggered concern among the higher ET alliance councils overseeing the Earth's developmental trajectory. The solution, according to insiders, was cooperation instead of escalation. So rather than allowing the United States and China to descend into catastrophic conflict, intermediary alliance factions facilitated covert communication channels between military, aerospace, and intelligence divisions from both nations. These channels focused on a shared realization. Humanity can no longer remain confined to a planet divided by obsolete geopolitical systems while possessing technologies capable of transforming civilization entirely. So, one of the most classified components of the briefings involved discussions centered around limited technology integration agreements. For example, Space Force possessed advanced aerospace navigation systems, as well as orbital defense infrastructure and classified propulsion breakthroughs developed through decades of covert research. China, meanwhile, controlled unparalleled industrial scaling capability, quantum communication advancements, and massive rare earth mineral supply chains necessary for next generation technological development. Alliance analysts concluded that neither side alone possessed all the components required to transition humanity into the space era. Therefore, they had to come together in order to share and accelerate the process dramatically. The report claimed the proposed collaboration focused between Trump and Xi Jinping focused on several areas. The first area that it focused on was the development of next generation propulsion systems, transitioning away from fossil fuel dependency, expansion of orbital infrastructure, creation of advanced magnetic transportation grids, construction of off-world manufacturing systems, preparation for lunar and Mars industrial operations, development of anti-asteroid planetary defense systems in the form of the Golden Dome. So the Golden Dome is also going to be a worldwide initiative, not just here in the Americas. And last but not least, controlled disclosure of breakthrough energy technologies. This is great news, guys. So these projects were not viewed as national achievements, but as fundamental steps towards a future planetary civilization. The briefings include Space Force as far more than a traditional military branch. Space Force serves as the transitional bridge between covert aerospace operations and the eventual public emergence of a unified planetary defense and exploration infrastructure. Alliance insiders claim Space Force leadership increasingly recognizes the future conflict will not be fought solely over territory or resources, but over orbital control, space-based energy networks, interplanetary logistics, quantum technologies, quantum communications, and advanced propulsion technologies. The Trump-Xi Jinping negotiations accelerated discussions concerning the prevention of a future space arms race by replacing confrontation with controlled technological cooperation. According to this became known as the Space Era Accords. And this was signed a few days ago when Trump met with Xi Jinping. The briefing further suggests that disclosure itself was deeply connected to the technological transition. Humanity cannot fully enter the space era while remaining psychologically trapped inside obsolete models of isolation, scarcity, and planetary division. Therefore, the gradual release of information concerning UFOs, UAPs, and advanced technologies was therefore intended to prepare the public for a future in which humanity recognizes that it is not alone in the universe, where space becomes humanity's next frontier, where energy abundance replaces engineered scarcity, where nations evolve into cooperative planetary alliances like the 22 federated regions, the superstates that I've been talking about, where technological advancements become tied to consciousness development, and most importantly, where Earth transitions from a divided civilization into a Type 1 interplanetary space age civilization. So in truth, guys, the Trump-Xi Jinping meeting was orchestrated by the Galactic Alliance per Commander Valiant Thor. And it obviously symbolizes the first visible stage of a larger transformation quietly unfolding beneath the surface of global geopolitics. And this is all, again, paving the way for the positive timeline trajectory, the Star Trek future that we've all been waiting for. Furthermore, Alliance analysts conclude that humanity may currently exist at the crossroads between two timelines. One path leads towards increasing fragmentation, technological authoritarianism, and conflict between collapsing nation-state systems. The other leads towards planetary cooperation, advanced technology rollouts, disclosures, and humanity's emergence into the greater galactic and eventually cosmic communities. The Space Era Accords have been signed by both Trump and Xi Jinping and will continue to gain traction because it reframes global power structures or struggles as growing pains preceding humanity's transition into a civilization capable of expanding beyond the Earth itself. Now, to finalize this briefing, according to recent warnings from the International Energy Agency, the IEA, global commercial oil inventories are being depleted at record pace, with some estimates suggesting only weeks of commercial reserves remaining available under current consumption levels. Within alliance circles, this crisis is not being viewed as an economic emergency. It is being interpreted as the controlled dismantling of the final energy pillar sustaining the old global power. You guys know what I'm talking about, right? Europe, the European Union. So apparently the alliance, its monitoring divisions are now tracking what analysts describes as the beginning of the largest engineered transformation of the global energy system since the fall of the old colonial empires. And this was a triggered event that escalated as the Iran conflict and the prolonged disruption of shipping through the Strait of Hormuz. So, the Strait of Hormuz, which is one of the world's most critical energy corridors, has become the center of the unfolding global supply crisis. The IEU, the International Energy Agency, reports that flows through the strait have plunged dramatically due to the Iran conflict, triggering historic inventory breakdowns and drawdowns and severe supply shortages across the European Union. Alliance analysts note that nearly 20% of global seaborne oil trade previously passed through the Hormuz before the disruption. The consequences are now rippling across the entire old planetary globalist structure. Oil inventories failing at record pace, emergency strategic reserves being tapped, and this is all affecting the jet fuel of the European transportation systems. So according to the International Energy Agency, they have observed that global inventories declined by roughly 4 million barrels per day during March and April alone. Well, within Alliance intelligence, this event was anticipated years in advance. Alliance briefings identified the European Union as one of the most vulnerable regions in the current energy confrontation because Europe remains deeply dependent on imported energy flows, particularly the LNG and Gulf region oil shipments. The Hormuz disruption is accelerating internal fractures throughout the European structure, the European Union structure. Energy cost, industrial instability, declining manufacturing competitiveness, and rising public unrest in Europe are all placing enormous pressure on centralized European institutions. Reuters reports that European companies are among the hardest hit economically by the ongoing conflict. Alliance observers interpret this as the unraveling of the remnants of the old imperial economic architecture that dominated global trade routes for centuries. So, this report refers to this system symbolically as the last phase of the old British imperial empire. This is fascinating. According to insiders, the modern financial and maritime order evolved from centuries old centralized trade empires that eventually transformed into global banking, shipping, intelligence, and energy control systems centered around scarcity economics, fractal banking. The current energy shock is therefore portrayed as more than just a disruption. It is viewed as a stress fracture within the old centralized control architecture itself. Alliance intelligence understood that humanity could not transition into a technologically advanced civilization while remaining dependent and vulnerable through these controlled, centralized fossil fuel geopolitical monopolies. Therefore, the collapsing of the old energy model was considered inevitable. Now, Alliance sources claim that the current crisis is accelerating several hidden objectives simultaneously. The first one is that it is weakening the centralized financial dependency systems of the globalist empire. Secondly, it is accelerating decentralization of energy infrastructure. Thirdly, it is pushing nations towards alternative technologies. Fourthly, it is breaking monopolistic control over global shipping routes. Fifthly, it is restructuring industrial supply chains. And sixthly, it is preparing the public for post-oil economic systems. And last but not least, it is creating jurisdiction for next generation energy rollouts, free energy. So according to this report, this is why multiple nations, China, Russia, India, Brazil, and the US have quietly accelerated investments into quantum energy research, off-grid city architecture, in other words, investing in free energy, magnetic propulsion infrastructures, and most importantly, space-based energy platforms, and leaving the European Union out of it. This is the transition into the space era. Oh, this is where it's all heading, my friends. Alliance analysts believe that the current energy collapse is directly connected to the broader transition discussed during the Trump-Xi Jinping negotiations as they signed the Disclosure and Space Era Accords a few days ago. The old petroleum-based civilization model is viewed as incompatible with humanity's entry into the space era. A civilization capable of becoming an interplanetary system cannot remain dependent on vulnerable sea lanes and combustion-based infrastructures anymore. The report claims that hidden multinational projects are already preparing for the foundation of self-sustaining megacities, magnetic transportation systems, non-combustion propulsion technologies, planetary scale, what we called planetary scale free energy technologies, lunar and orbital industrial infrastructures. The Hormuz crisis has become the catalyst accelerating humanity away from the old industrial empire system and toward a technologically integrated interplanetary civilization. The final assessment concludes that the world may now be entering the final phase of the old energy order. The collapsing of the centralized oil dependency, the destabilization of global trade monopolies, and the fragmentation of traditional power blocks are all interpreted within the narrative as signs that the old geopolitical architecture is losing control over the direction of human civilization. The current crisis is increasingly being interpreted within alliance communities as evidence that humanity is approaching a massive transition point, one where the systems that govern Earth for centuries begin withering away to an entirely new technological, economic, QFS, BRICS, and planetary model of civilization. Now, in addition to all of this, off the subject, Donald Trump has announced that he will not implement lockdowns nor fall for this false antivirus pandemic. Trump claims that the deep state wants to strip freedom from the global population. So there you go. All right. This rat V is not going to be an issue. Well, at least not in the 209 nations that are aligned with the alliance. So even if they attempt, right, to say that this is another outbreak and that they need to lock everybody down again, right? Another lockdown. Trump just announced on Truth Social that he will not implement or comply to the lockdowns. He said, heck no. In addition to all of that, John McAfee, the mainstream media, he already revealed, or he disclosed recently, that the mainstream media has been using a technology called neuro-linguistic programming for more than 15 years. And that neuro-linguistic programming makes you think and believe things which are not true, which is another form of mind control. All right, cool. I hope you guys enjoyed this report, and I hope you guys share this with as many people as possible, because there's a lot of confusion right now as to why they met, but it's all in favor of the liberation of the earth, and most importantly, of transitioning us into a space age society. So I do want to welcome all 2,700 people that are in the house. Thank you, Edward Wuzik, for your donation, as well as Susan K. Thank you so much for your donation. All right, let's give some shout outs. I do want to welcome my moderators. Again, thank you so much for being here and squashing them trolls. I do see Xanda in the house. Angela's in the house. Sylvia Vidal. Bonnie Binsky. Karen Shacom or Shacom. Frosted Fluke is in the house. Zerath is in the house. Sheila Marie. Punk or Punky Punk. Punky Punk is in the house. Azalu is in the house. She says she's new here. Welcome, Azalu. Anu Hazi dude is in the house. Nonconformist Cave is in the house. I love that name, Nonconformist Kev. Um, Last person. Who am I going to call? Somebody new. Kathy. Kathy is in the house. All right, awesome. All right, so it is time for Q&A. Please type your questions in capital letters. Thank you so much. Holy ship for your super chat. I appreciate that. Carol, thank you so much, Carol, for your super chat as well. Appreciate that. All right. Hi, Ishmael. This is a question from Antoinette. What is it about Santa Fe, New Mexico that is desirable for an interplanetary safe zone? What is the deal with fear-mongering data centers? Well, first of all, the reason Santa Fe, New Mexico was picked by the Galactics to become one of the first interplanetary cities is because a lot of alien activity has been going on in and around that area for quite a long time. Many believe that Santa Fe, New Mexico has been operating as a second Area 51. Now, for those of you that are concerned about those data centers, due to the trifurcation of timelines, those data centers will not be existing in the ascending positive organic Earth reality. And yes, my friends, today is the 18th of May, and you know it. We are still on a positive timeline trajectory. So yeah, we don't have to worry about the data centers when the timelines begin to split. As many of you guys know, currently all of these timelines are coexisting simultaneously, but they are very soon to go into their own way. Carol, thank you so much for the super chat. Nathan Taylor, thank you for the super chat. When will we go to 5D? Will we be able to hear other people's thoughts? Very soon, I would say between now and 2028, because that's when I believe the current reality construct comes to an end. Now, it could happen sooner. It could happen in the next few weeks, in the next few months. And the second part of your question, yes, in 5D, we will all be telepathic, full blown, absolutely. Now, if you want to have privacy of your own thoughts, you will be. The best way to describe it is, you will have the ability to close your mind off from others reading it, because we have to respect free will. But yes, for the most part, we are going to be telepathic in the 5D or and above. Next question coming from Zeroth 888. So we know that the real Donald Trump operates in isolation. So can you please explain if the Trump we see in office is the negative timeline Trump or not? Sometimes it is the negative timeline Trump, right? That is all done in a Hollywood setting with the fake office of the White House, right? Fake White House, fake executive office, fake people. And sometimes is the stand-in, what we call the actor that is playing him, that is taking orders from the original Trump, who is in an isolated location. So we have to have discernment when we are looking at the media, okay? Because it could be either or. Now, this is another super chat from Jackie Santana. Welcome, Jackie. She says, Ishmael, you are a mentor to all starseeds. Well, thank you, sister. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for your hard work, devotion, and love for what you do and the knowledge that you share with us. You are so welcome, sister. My respect and admiration. May God bless you always. That means a lot to me. Thank you for sharing that. Quick reminder for those that did not have the opportunity to watch my presentation, The Cosmic Human Design. This was a presentation that I gave last week or last 2 weeks ago at the Rise of the Guardians conference, and I decided to upload it on my YouTube channel Friday night. So make sure you guys watch that presentation. It is mind blowing from what I heard. A lot of people really enjoyed it. All right, next question. Thank you so much, Sheila Marie, for your donation. Over. This is a question from Overcomer. Welcome, Overcomer. Thank you for your super chat. Ish, your streams are the only intel I trust. Well, thank you. That means a lot to me, sister. Thank you for dedicating your life to the cause. It is an honor and pleasure to serve the one infinite creator. And all glory goes to God, by the way, guys. All glory goes to the one infinite creator, to source. I am just an instrument, just like all of you guys are. And we were all born with certain talents and gifts. So, yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Is He-Man real? Who knows? Perhaps in an alternative universe he is. Well, when you really think about how they are able to write these stories, whether they are in the form of cartoons, trilogies, series on TV, television shows, they all have to come from somewhere, right? So when somebody's writing a story, Thundercats, you name it, right? It's because they're tapping into the collective something. So it obviously already exists in either another parallel universe or somehow they are deriving all this information from tapping into the ethers. So I think there is truth to everything. Absolutely. Oh, what's going on, Kitty? I hear you meowing. Are you okay? You okay, kitty cat? Yeah, you are. What about the reptilians? Good question. Oh, well, remember how I was talking about how the CCP was also financed and manipulated by the Rothschilds? Well, it turns out that the CCP was being run by shape-shifting reptilians, and ever since we've been cleaning house when it comes to these negative aliens, a lot of these Dracos that were controlling the CCP party were actually taken out within the last month by the Galactic Alliance and the super soldiers in China, which led to the dissolvement of the CCP party or the CCP tyranny. All right, so the Trump that is only talking about oil, right? This is where you guys have to have discernment. That is the negative Trump. All right, that is a fake Oval Office, a fake White House being filmed in a Hollywood studio. Have discernment, folks. Have discernment. John 963. Hi, Ishmael. With the news you gave us tonight, does China still want to military take over Taiwan, or is it a smokescreen? That is a good question, John. I am not sure about that, but what I do know is that there are going to be three super states that are going to be forming within the next couple of years to 3 years. And it's going to begin with America, the North American superstate. China is going to expand, and that might include Taiwan. China is going to become its own superstate, and then Russia is going to become its own superstate. And then the other 19 superstates will follow. So that could probably be part of China claiming more territory in order to expand into its superstate. So that could be the case, yes. And I'm talking about Mongolia as well, not just Taiwan. Thank you. This is the best explanation of world events ever. Thank you. I appreciate that, sister. All right, next question. This is coming from Kathy. Thank you so much, Kathy, for the super chat. If the disclosure is coming out slower, when do you see the new money system being rolled out? It's already in progress. It's already in progress. So we will, all of us, I don't care if you're 99 years old, we will live to see this transition take place. All right. Again, I've discovered some highly classified information regarding as to when this current timeline comes to an end, or this construct, and it is around 2028, give or take. So I would say that by 2030, we will already be an advanced space age type 1 or type 2 civilization. Put it this way, within the next couple of years, starting this year, right, rolling out into 2027, 2028, everything is, how can I say it? Within the next couple of years, we're going to be seeing things unfolding like never before. Things that are going to be shocking to some, things that are going to be very revelatory to a lot of people. So yeah, we're definitely going to start seeing things happening. Paige, thank you so much for your super chat. The night 3i Atlas came, 3:33 a.m., acid burning on Crown. Same week, blue orb in my house. What was the acid burning sensation? And is the orb connected? I am not sure, Paige. I don't know how to answer that. I'm sorry. There are just some questions that I don't have answers to. But that is so interesting that you experienced that on the night that 3i Atlas was near the Earth's orbit. Do you think that we in the surface reality will find out about the CCP being eradicated? Of course not, because the Mockingbird media is still spinning out lies. In fact, they made us believe that Trump and Xi Jinping were enemies, when in actuality, Xi Jinping was just trying to claim his national sovereignty from the Rothschild-controlled CCP. Kenneth Brown, thank you so much for your super chat. Hi, Ishmael. I'm wondering, when are they going to get rid of CCP army in Canada? I'm not aware of that. I'm going to have to look into that. I didn't even know that there was a country called Canada. Is that short for Canada? I'm going to have to look into that. Is there a country called Canada? Lovey? Is there a country called Canada? No? Okay. I'm going to have to look into that. I've never heard of that. Kathy, thank you so much for your super chat. Thank you, love, and appreciate. How soon will the cities be coming? Please know how important you are to all of us. Thank you. All glory to God. Yes, all glory to God. Now, to answer your question, again, I don't want to give a time frame. All I know is that 2028 is the deadline. Okay. Disclosure, releasing the files, the UAPs, the UFOs, the non-human intelligence negotiations, they all have to be out by the end of this year. So that's all I know. Will Yellowstone erupt soon? I hope not. I hope not. Now, there is a commander by the name of Soltech who works with the Galactic Alliance, very well, very good friends with Valiant Thor and Ashtar. And right now they are monitoring the supervolcanoes. They are monitoring the under ocean volcanoes. In fact, they are monitoring the entire planet so that we don't experience a premature ascension, which could lead to catastrophe. So I don't think that there's going to be an event that is going to be catastrophic. No, I don't think so. I think it's all being contained by the Galactic Alliance right now. Yes, Canada will be a new state and part of the North American superstate, the North American Federation. Absolutely. Yes, the real Trump is being kept safe in an undisclosed location. That is correct. Catamarans, thank you so much for your super chat. Hi, Ishmael. The Knights Templar seem to be white hats. Yes, they were the white hats 500, 1,000 years ago. Yes, they were the white hats. What do you think? Can we trust what they claim, or were they infiltrated? Well, the original Templars that organized 1,500 years ago in respondents to the tyranny of the Vatican, the nine Frenchmen that went to the old ruins of Solomon's Temple all the way up until the late 1700s, 1800s, they were good. They were the white hats during that time period, right? They were protectors of the Atlantean technology. They were protectors of the Holy Grail lineage. And after the establishment of America, which was their long-planned millennial project, by the way, they were infiltrated. So now the white hats had to reorganize, and they still operate through secret societies. But nowadays, they're not known as the Knights Templars. And of course, I reveal that in detail in my book, The Secret Government, Invincible Architects. Yeah, this book is available on Amazon or through my website, or cosmicorigin.com. So if you guys want to learn the history of the alliance going back to the flood and how it was transferred over to Abraham, Jacob, King David, and Solomon. Solomon was a huge player for the alliance, King Solomon. And then how they later resurfaced as the community of Qumran. Order my book, The Secret Government. It explains the entire war between the White Hats and the Cabal going back to 6,000 years. It's fascinating, and it's easy to digest as you read it. Yes, you heard correct. Royce Toys and Comics. They will be eliminating the stock market, which has been manipulated, of course. Yes, that is correct. Question from Stephanie. She's asking, what is the most useful type of schooling, education for children now? Public, online, homeschooling, galactic Jedi, etc. I would say online or even homeschooling your own children, because the crap that they teach these kids in school is false history, false science, and of course, limited consciousness. So I would say homeschool your own kids until, of course, we are fully settled in the golden age. So I would homeschool your own children. Sheila Marie, thank you so much for your super chat. What do you know about Cuba going to attack Gitmo? From what I hear is that Cuba, last month, I believe the mafia or the criminal network in Cuba was dismantled by the White Hats, as well as Mexico. That explains why a few months ago there was a full on war between the cartel and the Mexican government. Well, the Mexican government aligned with the alliance as to why they purged the cartel, and we won that war. So, slowly but surely, guys, we are purging the North American continent from these criminal networks. Janine, thank you so much for your super chat. Greatly appreciated, sister. Murr, thank you so much for your super chat as well. Um, is the RH negative blood significant for the ascension? Um, I don't think so. Daniel, thank you for your super chat. Concerned about so many Christian friends and my own family. However, I accept all paths as is. How will so many in the general public break out of the religious and media brainwashing? Well, when they release the UFO records, the classified information, the treatises that went on between shadow governments and aliens, when they release all of that to the general public, a lot of people are going to be waking up, I hope. We'll see what happens. Ishmael, what about North Korea? Controlled by the globalists as well. You guys have to understand that wherever there is communism, that was installed by the globalist. Okay? The old European Roman Empire. Should we take our money out of the stock market? Is asking Meg Mary. Absolutely. Yes. Especially now, guys. Especially now. Kenneth Brown, thanks so much for the super chat. Yes, CCP Army has been in Canada for 10 years. We have been training them. Our government are or will Space Force going to get rid of them? Good question. I'm going to have to ask Commander Valiant Thor and report on that next Monday when I do another Alliance update. I just don't know how to answer that right now. Ishmael, will you ever have your books recorded as audiobooks? Well, I do have this. No, wait. Is it Our Cosmic Origin? Yeah, Our Cosmic Origin is an audio format. I just haven't had, I would have to say, the resources to make the secret government available in audio format, but I will work on that. But Our Cosmic Origin is. All right, I have time for a couple more questions. Do all star seeds have astigmatism? I don't know what that means. Oh, I don't know much about that. I'm gonna have to look into that. Bad eyesight? Well, I have stigmatism of the eye, and I'm a star seed, so I don't think all star seeds do, though. I'm looking for a question. I'm trying to bypass the chat. All right. Can you please tell me why my family and I have been targeted by the Greys since the late 60s, early 70s? Whoa. Okay. That's a good question. Now, this is a generational thing. Apparently, you come from a particular bloodline that the Greys are interested in. So I really don't know much about your family history, but the fact that you and your family have been targeted by the Greys perhaps has a lot to do with a hybrid program. Who knows? But yeah, I really don't know why, my friend. And I'm sorry that that happened to you and your family. All right, one more question. I'm looking for a question. I'm trying to bypass the chat. All right, come on, guys. Ask me a question. Take a break from talking to one another. Ask me a question. One more question. Um, what about Bitcoin? Okay, and XRP. Should we take out of stock now? Bitcoin, yes, because as mentioned before, Bitcoin was created by the Epstein network to, transfer little ones without it being known, right? Without any record of it. So Bitcoin was created by the cabal. If you guys have investments in Bitcoin, take your money out. XRP, XLM is where it's at. All right. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed today's presentation. And I will see you guys when? In 2 days for an Ascension Energy update. May the God force be with you always. Bye, guys.